This is Brad Shive, aka Shive IT, bringing you the Enterprise Hybrid Cloud from EMC and VMware. This is essentially a cloud management platform pre-installed and pre-integrated on a vBlock delivered to the customer out of the factory, all functional and working. There is a little bit of on-premise work that needs to be done to connect virtual centers and IP ranges and things of that nature, but that's about a week engagement. So it's cloud in a box. And here we go. You'll see that I'm logging in to Cloud Admin at VLab Local into the vRealize automation, and there's my password. Now I'm going to log in here. Looks like I'm just logging into vRealize automation, but the special sauce is the fact that I have a software-defined data center leveraging NSX, leveraging vSphere, and leveraging ViPR that's going to enable all the features that I'm about to show you. This is the service catalog. Again, I want to remind you that I'm the cloud administrator, so the service catalog is going to be fairly robust. It is pages long. So let's go to application services and data protection services and cloud storage services and desktop services and virtual servers. Let's start here. I'm going to create a backup service level, and we'll call it Piatti's Backups. And we'll call this tier 2. And we'll do it on data domain. And because Patty is a baller, we'll do it daily. And we'll retain it forever because this stuff's really important. And we'll keep that for 1 year. I'll push OK. You'll see that this is in progress right there. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to provision cloud storage. And in this case, I'm going to change the name. We are literally adding storage for the VM space. Because storage is important, I don't want just anybody allocating it. I've put a password here. So not only do you have to be a cloud administrator, but you also have to be a storage admin to be able to leverage this. You'll see that I'm going to use a tenant resource. We're going to add VMFS, the storage tier, FastVP, mainly because we're ballers, and we will give it 10 gigs of space. We'll kick that off. Again, you'll notice that it's in progress. So now we've created a tier of service from a backup perspective. We've also created some additional cloud storage. We could roll out a desktop. This is what it would look like. This is what the blueprint would look like if we wanted to. You can see the pricing here will change based on the configuration items that I choose. This is about coaching your customers to be good stewards of the resources. Right now, everybody calls up and asks for everything they can because it's essentially a no-cost asset. But what our customers are finding is when there's a price related to the cost of the objects or the resources, the customers are much better stewards, meaning your employees are much better stewards of the resources once they know the cost that's going to drop to their cost center / line of business. Amazing how that works, isn't it? Here are all the VMs. Linux no protection is essentially that. It's Linux that's not got a protected or a backup layer to it. So again, I can change these, and it's going to change the price of my service, right? Right down to the memory. You can see the memory price is changing. Anyhow, I'm going to build one of those, and we'll let that slide. We'll go to requests. Again, you can see these coming in. And we will go to virtual centers. I want to show you something called a lease because I think that's important and cool. A lease is something I'd allow my developers or maybe my temporary workers or even my production environment. I would set a lease. The lease will expire at the end of the lease and shut the VM down. At the same time, or 2 weeks preceding that, it will notify the owner and the change advisory board that, hey, listen, I'm going to shut this VM down. Do you want to extend that lease? And it'll give them that option. But you can see, as I change the lease, my cost changes as well. So that's pretty cool and powerful. We're going to give them 7 days. We'll submit that. Again, it'll spin it down. What's magic about that is, if you allow it to, then at a later date, it will also destroy that VM. So fundamentally, we get resource clawback in an automated fashion, or reclaim. So you've now seen leasing, and you've seen non-protected VMs. Let's do a protected VM. Actually, let me see if we've had provision cloud storage. Well, let's see, create a backup partner. Let's see if we can get a backup that I like to use. Select a level of backup service. Well, we have one right there. So we're going to do 1, and then we're going to collect Piattis or Perry's, and we will go to submit that. This is a backed up VM, Linux protected, so it's forcing me to select a backup, and I'm going to go and submit that. Now, all of these tasks are being automated on the back end. I haven't had to do anything. In fact, your entire organization is going to work in through this portal, and you'll probably do only break fix through your traditional tools. So that's fantastic. You've seen a bunch of how we use this service catalog. This is multi-tenant, by the way, and we can literally log out and log back in and show you that. Let's take a look at as you can see here, I'm going to log in as business analyst at VLab Local. They're going to have a very different view than the previous person who was a cloud admin. In fact, this is what all of the service catalog items I'm allowed to use here. So in this case, let's spin up a VDI session. Again, as we've shown you before, our cost associated will change based on the number of those. I'm going to submit that. There's also this neat tab here that allows me to see the total cost. And because I'm a business analyst, I have access to these things. But let's go back and log in as cloud admin. Most of our customers customize this tool per line of business or geography or region that they service, and then they display only the service catalog or publish only the service catalog items that are relevant to that particular group. I do want to show you this. This is some serious special sauce here. This is a set it and forget it way of running and managing the costs in your data center and the public cloud, and we'll walk through this. This is your total cost of all clouds. That means your public, private, all of your clouds rolled up into a single number, your averages of averages. So this is my total cost. This is my average per VM cost. And these are the number of VMs I'm running between my public cloud, let's call it Amazon, vCloud Air, and my on-prem. My total cost is 27 VMs and about $9,589 a month. The breakout is here. So I'll set these things. If I, happen to renegotiate a new deal, I can always edit the costs here. So the nice thing is I can make changes. This database is initially set up with industry standard numbers. So out of the box, you have industry standard numbers that you're able to tweak fairly easily using that edit function. We also update that database on an ongoing basis. The idea for that is those numbers go down over time, and as long as you allow the ports to be open, we'll consistently update that database unless, of course, you edit one of those fields, and we'll leave that field unedited, or we won't write over the field that you change. Now you can see, what my consumption costs are and what my operational costs are. I also want to show you this. This is nice. It tells you your cost, your consumed capacity by VM, blah, blah, blah. You can also compare it to budgets. And most importantly, once I set a line of business, a region, a data center, I can leave it at that, whether it be by OU or flag it or by users who spin things up. I can tag them any number of ways. But once I've set that up, I can set it and forget it. And now I'll know where each budget is going for my line of businesses. This is incredibly powerful for people who have to do budgeting per annum. This allows us to say, well, the reason that we spent so much money is because the DevOps group went bananas. Or in our case, the others went bananas this year. So we need to get this money back from the others group to reseed everything that they used up last year. Incredibly compelling for IT operations directors and C-level execs who constantly have to battle the belief that IT is just a cost center. We're in fact an enabler of business lines of business, marketing, development. All of those guys need our resources, and we have a hard time providing cost analytics for them. And we have that here, set it and forget it fashion. Now let's do something that's pretty compelling to most of our executives. You'll notice here, I've set up a couple of different examples, and I'm going to compare my private cloud to Azure and to Amazon. And with one VM, you can actually see that it makes more sense for me to go out into the public cloud than be on-prem in my private cloud. Now that's only because I've set up all these givens to reflect one VM, CPU, core, RAM, and no disk space at all. Again, it's important for you to know that I'm calling the live APIs, the billing APIs of Windows Azure, and the live APIs of Amazon. Those APIs are giving me back these recommended sizes for their VMs and these costs. So as soon as I say, well, I'm going to run 25 POCs this year, and then I'm going to begin to change my core count, because very rarely do we just use 2 cores. And then I'm going to give CPU speed up to something that's much more common, like 2.3 gigahertz. And then my RAM is measured at half a gig here. Let's call this 8 because we're a Windows shop. And I'm going to give, mind you, this is an average across all of those POC boxes. So I'm going to give them some amount of storage here from a NAS perspective. And then we'll also give it some performance storage. And since we're a Windows shop, let's use something reasonable. And you can see that I can change any number of these metrics, and it's going to go out there and apply those to the billing APIs of the cloud providers. So that way we can get an idea of what our cost would be if we rolled it out internally, if we rolled it out externally. Well, now that we've applied real metrics to those VMs, mind you, we weren't exactly gracious with those metrics, but they were real metrics, right? A couple of processors, 2 gigahertz, 8 gigs of RAM. Suddenly these costs look very different. Now out in Azure, we'd be going with the 25 by A6, and out in Amazon, we'd be using the 25X M3 extra large instance. Now, I don't know what's extra large about that, but that's what it would equate to out in Amazon, right? And this tells you the metrics that we're comparing, so they're fair across all of them. Now, this begins to give you a good idea of what the spend would look like in the public cloud if you were to run your business out of the public cloud. But for reality's sake, let's do, something along the lines of a small customer of ours might run like this. We'll do 2 cores. This time we'll do 2 gigahertz. We'll only do 4 gigs of RAM. And this time we'll do 100. And we'll tab down here and we'll do 80. Now that's a pretty small environment still, but you can see how these numbers begin to get even crazier, right? And now let's do development. We'll do, I don't know if your production environment is 500, let's do test dev, so let's call that 1500. Again, it's averages, so we don't want to be too generous on the resources we give here, right? Because that'll really skew the results. So we'll just do 2 cores. We'll leave it at 2 gigahertz. But I think on average, most Windows shops will probably use more than 5 or 6 gigs. And we'll go back here and use the same metrics that we used before, only because I think they're fair. And in, some of our larger, or large commercial organizations or maybe even small enterprises, this would reflect a cost difference of what they would have to look forward to if they were to outsource their entire environment to the public cloud. So doing it on-prem would cost about $166,000. Doing it in anybody's public cloud is going to cost over $500,000. And if you remember over here, I didn't have multiple zones, I didn't have backups, I didn't have archive, I didn't have any of those options here. This is purely a running state IaaS, apples to apples comparison. And if you really begin to consider that, you have a $400,000 or a $500,000 savings, no matter how you slice and dice it, in this environment per month. What could you do? What could you do with that amazing funding? So I've now shown you a bit about the enterprise hybrid cloud. This is what it delivers. It also gives you capacity planning and the software-defined data centers with ViPR and vRealize operations. So you'll get all of that bundled onto a vBlock with a service catalog day one to run and work with your environment and solve business challenges. I appreciate the time. I hope this was insightful, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thank you. Take care.